of shadows.
Hi my angels, it's Hailey Reese, and for today's video we are going to be diving into yet another Ed and Lorraine Warren case, and perhaps one of the most widely speculated as far as authenticity goes. We are finally going to be diving into the Southend Werewolf. And this case actually hasn't been that highly requested from you guys. I'm not sure if it's because maybe not a lot of you have heard of this case, or if it's because not a lot of you believe that the case is real, or if it's just because you haven't really thought of it. But I am rather excited to dive into this case because, as you guys know, I absolutely love Ed and Lorraine Warren. I am so sad of their passing, and I love diving into the cases that they explored and investigated and resolved. So that is what we're going to be doing for today's video. Before I get into today's video though, I would just very quickly like to say, if you are new to my channel or you are just not yet subscribed, but you do enjoy my videos, I would super duper appreciate it. That was so cheesy. If you would go ahead and click that subscribe button down below and join the Reese's Pieces, we would absolutely love to have you, and I've got some good content coming up, so I really don't want you to miss it if you do enjoy my videos. But without further ado, let's get right on into the Southend Werewolf. So the Southend Werewolf case revolves around a man by the name of William Bill Ramsey. So like I said, his name was actually William Ramsey, but he went by Bill Ramsey, and he was actually brought up in Southend, Essex in the UK. Now, Bill actually had a relatively normal childhood. There wasn't really anything that stood out up until around the age of 9 years old, when he started displaying some worrisome traits. It was a Saturday afternoon in 1952 when this ice-cold chill shot through Bill. I really didn't mean to rhyme there. This ice cold just kind of came completely over Bill, and precipitation, or water rather, kind of froze all over his skin. He actually also had this horrifying smell come around him that made him want to vomit. At this time, Bill only really had two things on his mind, one of which was running away to the ocean waves, and the other was actually wolves. Now, when all of these feelings came over Bill, he suddenly had this rush of adrenaline, and he was actually able to uproot a fence post with the fence still attached, and was able to swing it around like a club. To really put into perspective how much of an adrenaline rush he had, and this power, this superhuman power that he suddenly possessed at such a small age, is, like I said, he was around 9 years old, and not even his parents will be able to lift the fence post out with their bare hands like that. So he was suddenly possessing this great deal of strength. Bill then placed the wire meshing into his mouth and began gnawing on it, and his parents actually fled inside of the house, leaving their son outside until he was seeming as though he had calmed down. Because bear in mind, all of a sudden he just rips the fence post out of the ground with the fence still attached and begins gnawing on metal wiring. Now, while this incident was so abnormal and so terrifying to the parents, it kind of seemed like a once-in-a-blue-moon occasion, and it seemed like something that really just only happened once, because he would later have no other incidences and grow up, get married, have kids with a woman named Nina. Now, during the first 2 years of Bill's marriage, he would continuously have these nightmares that would make him wake up into a cold sweat. The nightmares were always relatively the same, and they always kind of consisted of his wife running away from him. And when she looks back at him, she looks back at him with sheer and complete horror. He even at one point in time woke up to what sounded like a wild animal panting in the room, but when he woke up, it was just himself. He was the wild animal noise that he heard panting in the room. In 1967, the dreams would stop, and once again, it would seem like it was kind of just a strange period of his life, because nothing would occur again for another 15 years. So there was a lot of gaps in between what he was experiencing. In 1983, Bill was actually out at a local pub with a bunch of his friends when suddenly he felt that same icy chill come completely over his body that he'd experienced as a small child. So he quickly excused himself and went to the bathroom. When he looked into the mirror, he saw what he described as a wolf staring back at him. So he was looking in the mirror as himself, but a wolf was looking back at him in the reflection. On the car ride home, all of a sudden, without any warning, Bill just completely changed. His hands kind of twisted into what could be described as claws, and he suddenly attempted to bite the leg of a fellow passenger in the car with him. Shortly before Christmas of 1983, Bill was actually rushed to the hospital because he was experiencing extreme chest pain. While he was at the hospital during a blood test, without any warning once again, Bill just went ahead and bit the nurse that was tending to him. And it was actually described that his whole body kind of hunched over, his hands turned to like more claw-like, and he had his teeth shown and his mouth shaped like a rabid animal. So he just completely out of nowhere changed and then bit the nurse that was attending to him. Anybody that would approach him in these moments would be met with superhuman strength and would be thrown to the ground. Like, his strength in these outbursts was unmatchable. And after this incident of 1983, right before Christmas in the hospital, Bill was actually advised to stay in the hospital, but he would later check himself out. In January of 1984, after visiting his mother, Bill suddenly felt that icy cold sensation over his body and felt himself beginning to change again. So he actually rushed back to the same hospital that the incident with the nurse had occurred at, and once he was inside, without any warning again, he went ahead and started attacking a whole bunch of workers with this superhuman strength and his teeth exposed like a rabid animal, and he required 4 police officers to take him down. Bill was actually arrested for this incident and was advised to check into a local mental institution as they felt as though there was something going on with him. But Bill did not want to check into the institution or become institutionalized because he didn't want to be labeled as a crazy person. And since he was able to be coherent and verbal and seemed as though he was under control, Bill was actually once again just released. In the summer of 1987, Bill actually conducted a citizen's arrest on a local teenage prostitute and decided to bring her to the police station. Once he parked the car and they arrived at the police station, the teenage girl noticed Bill starting to change and fled into the police station. He started to feel that cold feeling over his body again and a pressure in his chest, and he felt himself slowly starting to change when a police officer approached his vehicle. Now, this police officer was actually a lot bigger than Bill, so he walked up to him without any real fear within him and made the mistake of touching Bill's arm. That was when, once again, without any real warning besides that feeling that would take over his body, Bill began attacking the police officer and was actually choking him out until help arrived. When the other officers realized what had happened, they also went to go and restrain him, but Bill was actually so wild, you guys, it required a dozen police officers and 2 injections to finally restrain him. So he had some real superhuman strength when this rage would take over his body. After that vicious assault, Bill made the decision to actually check himself into the mental institution to run some testing on him, as he was now starting to fear not only his own safety, but most importantly the safety of others. So they went ahead and conducted a series of tests on him, including MRIs, x-rays, psychiatric evaluations, and nothing turned up any plausible explanation as to why he could be having such wild and violent outbursts. Now, the police officer attack actually propelled Bill's case into international headlines, and it was at this point in time people began referring to him as the Southend Werewolf. Bill would continue to have these wild and violent outbreaks with no reason at all or whatsoever, and he would find himself back at the police station time and time again to be locked up until he could calm down for the safety of others. Now, it was at this point in time that Ed and Lorraine Warren had caught wind of the Southend Werewolf case, and initially they were actually kind of skeptical about the case and felt as though maybe it could be a hoax. But after talking with Bill and the family members of Bill and the police officers involved in the case of Bill, they decided that there might actually be some truth behind the case. The Warrens very quickly believed that what was going on was very much real, although at this point in time they didn't know why. Finally, the Warrens came to the conclusion after talking with Bill and his wife and everyone involved in the case that Bill was possessed by a form of demon animal spirit. The Warrens actually convinced Bill that he should come to their church in Connecticut and should have an exorcism performed by Bishop Robert McKenna, who actually had exorcisms under his belt already, so he was experienced in exorcism. In 1989, Bill and his wife would take the trip to the States in order to try to find some sort of explanation for what had been going on, but most importantly, find a resolution for what had been going on. And actually, during this time, another violent incident occurred where in the middle of the night, Bill would choke his wife in his sleep, but he wouldn't remember it in the morning. That violent incident towards his wife was actually just days before the exorcism would be performed. Now, actually, during the beginning of the exorcism, Bill himself was incredibly skeptical. As the bishop was going on in Latin and trying to exorcise the demon, Bill initially felt nothing at all and began to wonder if he'd wasted his time coming all the way to the States to be exorcised. But Bishop Robert McKenna would place his stole on Bill's head and demand that the demon identify himself. And that was when suddenly Bill's entire demeanor started to change. He suddenly got angry, vicious, violent. He began snarling. He had his teeth bared and his eyes were wild and his fingers looked as though they were morphing into almost claws. Lorraine Warren actually claimed that his features started to change, that his ears appeared more pointed, his face appeared more feral, his fingers appeared more claw-like. The bishop held the crucifix up and demanded the demon to leave Bill's body at once, and Bill became all the more violent and hostile and angry and not like himself. Bill lunged and swiped at the bishop, and actually the bishop had policemen nearby whom he urged to stand down while he performed this exorcism. Just when it seemed as though Bill wasn't going to stop and was actually going to cause harm to Bishop Robert McKenna, all of a sudden his body just fell to the floor limp and he let out one last snarl or growl. It was believed at that moment in time that the demon had left the body of Bill, and Bill actually claimed to never have any more experiences after that exorcism. Bill claimed he was able to go on and lead a normal, peaceful life with no incidences occurring, and Ed and Lorraine Warren actually went on to write a novel called Werewolf, a true story of demonic possession. So was Bill really possessed by a demon animal spirit? If you asked Ed and Lorraine Warren, they would say yes. They truly believed that he was, in fact, possessed by a demon animal spirit. And there are many people who also believe that he was, in fact, possessed by a demon animal spirit. But others believe it may have had something more to do with a mental condition. There actually is a mental condition where the person experiencing the condition believes as though they are actually shape-shifting into an animal. People believe that that could have been what Bill was experiencing, and then once he was exorcised, he believed that it had been removed, so he was no longer a victim to this condition, while others believe it could have been an undiagnosed psychiatric condition as well. But one thing is for certain, anybody and everybody who was involved with the case of Bill Ramsey or the Southend Werewolf remained baffled by the whole entire case, by the superhuman strength that he seemed to have in his outbursts. And even the police involved with the case felt as though something much more unexplainable was going on. It is said that Bill Ramsey never had another episode, and after 1992, he kind of fell off the map. So what we know is probably all we will ever know, and it's really up to those who hear of the case to interpret whether or not they believe that Bill Ramsey was possessed by a demon animal. Well, you guys, what do you guys think of the Southend Werewolf? Do you believe that Bill Ramsey was possessed, or do you think there was something more explainable going on? Let me know in the comments below. Many people find this case to be kind of unbelievable, and in fact, out of all the Ed and Lorraine Warren cases, I think it's the one that's most commonly thought to be made up. But I definitely don't think it's unlikely. I just want to hear what you guys think. So make sure you guys let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this particular case. And that is it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's video and want to see more of me, please make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button. And if you did enjoy it, please also give it a big thumbs up, because I really love doing these videos and it would just mean the world to see that you guys are enjoying them. Remember, my loves, do all things with kindness, and until next time, I love you guys.